I'm an Arab Jew. In 1967, my family had to leave Tunisia as riots exploded during the Six-Day War. They lynched my grandfather as they chanted, "Israel kills," and death to the Jews. They burned down his factory while they burned the Torah. My family took the first flight to France, leaving behind, in a single day, a country they lived in for 2,000 years. Leaving Tunisia because of Israel. Leaving their home because they were Jewish. They were welcome neither there nor elsewhere. My grandmother fought for her family to gain citizenship in France. All my life, I resented my grandmother for living without saying a word, without a complaint, for not rioting, for trusting, for not resisting, for not admitting that she had been pushed out for her own country, for not confessing that it hurt her. I resented her cowardness. I grew up in France, le pays des Lumières, and I decided that I would never be scared. I laughed in their faces, the ones who talked about leaving, that talked about security. I made a mockery of their narrow-mindedness and fearful vision of the world. Weak people. I found them so weak. All my life, I resented my grandmother. Today, I'm repeating the exact same things I criticized her for. I'm scared, and I'm quiet. I hurt, and I'm quiet. I feel rejected, and I'm ashamed to be rejected. I have so much shame. I don't even see it anymore. Today, I passed by a building where the Star of David was painted, and I thought to myself, oh, how pretty it is to have a Magen David on this building. I minimize everything, because I refuse to be labeled as a victim. How could I complain about my little Jewish problems when at the same time, children in Palestine are being killed, schools destroyed, their innocence and futures taken away from them? So I stay quiet for decency, because there are worse things in the world, deeper pain than mine. But it always comes back, even if indecent. This feeling of rejection and immense pain, a boundless sorrow. I'm disappointed in France, I am disappointed in the Jews, I am disappointed in the Arabs. The whole world disappoints me, but above all, I am disappointed in myself. This disappointment takes a name, and it eats at the whole world in this one world. Hate. Hate that serves as the irrational choice. Hate that uses logic as a pretense to justify its existence, then disguises itself as justice. This hate that for some triggers a more tribal reaction, a violence that cowardly frame as a justifiable vengeance. Let's not call a terrorist, treating the data and numbers shot from those terrorists as an official source, mixing up the Palestinian cause with the terrorist. We won't call terrorists, especially as they decapitate babies, scream when a hospital is bombed, but go silent, as we learn is actually an attack from the terrorists, calling this a conflict of context and not an act of terrorism, but instead an act of resistance, killing and raping of young people at a festival by terrorists who we won't call terrorists. But let's use the word genocide to represent the other side's action without asking ourselves why those terrorists, who can't be terrorists as they defend and protect their kids, then use them as human shields, making a mockery of the aspirations of the Palestinian people for freedom and confusing that aspiration with the barbarism of those human animals are anything but terrorists, whose first victims are actually the Palestinian people. This has a name: hate. And this name is now written blue on buildings, chanting in the subway and busting on social media. What are we hating? Need I remind you that there is violence, stupidity and injustice all around the world? But it's only for one mobilization in the streets, protests, fights on social media, sends fake images and insults strangers. Where were we for the Uyghurs, the Iranians, the Armenians, the gays of Uganda, the Ukrainians? So what do we really hate? Why is it that when it comes to Israel, the world suddenly cares and gets involved? Why is it that when it comes to Israel, everyone suddenly becomes an historian, a novelist, a human rights activist, a vigilante? Why does talking about Israel always comes down to talking about ourselves? Isn't it because inside of all of us there is a foreigner, persecuted yet still standing, a contradictory force, completely neurotic, that boasts, surrenders and fights, that bothers, a mysterious resilience that comes to questions that shakes us up or defies us that we can stand? I think it's obvious. We are all Jewish. You didn't see it coming, right? Yes, Mr. Le Pen, you are Jewish. This time, I won't leave my country. I won't run. However, I won't wait for it to pass either. I won't keep a low profile, awaiting a reason to return. Reason. I don't believe in reason. As when it serves the worst intentions leads to the vil, always and forever. But there is another one. Just as easy to make. Equally rational. That choice is love. Have blind and total faith in that choice. Next to it, every debate, every idea, every theory becomes futile. The skin. That choice, always in you, even when you leave this earth. That choice doesn't limit itself to a border or a side, Israel or Palestine, as if we were talking about a football game. Turns out that it's true that the state is the death of the people, the coldest and cruelest of monsters, a superfluous invention. We need a hobby to pass the time or reason to exist. The only reason to exist is the only thing that remains when all else is gone. The only reason we exist is thanks to how we all made, because I made love. Love is unlimited, but it's very demanding. Love is not a game. It's a commitment that looks the others as the most precious thing on earth, as oneself, just because it is oneself. Mutalik, as my grandmother would say. As Jesus Christ said countless times, I already told you he's a Jew too, right? Unconditional love, of course, for humanity, but before all else, for oneself. Who do we go to war against after all? We can go to war against oneself, right? Then, who else do we go to war if it's not against oneself? I'm an Arab Jew.